Today, we're going to be talking about what might seem on the surface to be some heavy stuff. But in reality, it's quite basic. So stick with me and learn how you can reduce your stress response when dealing with others who hold differing opinions, especially in societal, cultural, and human rights discussions. We're going to be talking about empiricism and faith as parallel ways of knowing, but leading to divides in societal trends. Human understanding has been and continues to be shaped by multiple frameworks, some rooted in experience, while others are rooted in belief. Among these, empiricism and faith stand as dominant forces shaping intellectual and moral landscapes. But tradition and superstition have historically influenced societal norms as well. Tradition is inherited wisdom passed through generations, reinforcing social cohesion and cultural continuity, while superstition is a belief in supernatural causality, often rooted in psychological reinforcement rather than empirical validation. Now, though tradition and superstition influence human behavior, they don't function as distinct epistemological models in the same way empiricism and faith do. Tradition does provide continuity, superstition does offer psychological comfort, but neither serves as a formal way of knowing. So, for this discussion, we'll be focusing on just empiricism and faith. And please note right here as we begin, we have no intention of arguing whether faith or empiricism is superior. Rather, we aim to examine their differences, societal influence, and, most importantly, their fundamental incompatibilities in argumentation. Both serve important roles in shaping human understanding, but when applied to societal debates, their distinct natures often lead to conflict. And we're seeing that all the time, from the halls of Congress, White House, and state houses, all the way to casual discussions on the street, from news feeds and social media to family discussions and group conversations. Our goal today is to help you better understand why you might be experiencing distress when engaging other people, trying to make sense of what's happening in the world around you, and observing legislation and laws, and better understanding why you seem to reach an impasse when talking with others having opinions different than your own. And it comes down to intermingling faith with empiricism. At their core, empiricism and faith represent fundamentally different approaches to understanding. Empiricism is grounded in observation, experimentation, and sensory experience. It forms the background of science, demanding falsifiability, repeatability, and evidence-based reasoning. Faith, on the other hand, operates beyond empirical validation, relying on conviction, revelation, tradition, or moral intuition. It provides purpose, ethical frameworks, and communal identity. Simply put, we can measure and understand the depths of the ocean, but we can't in the same way understand the depth of another person's moral convictions. While both empiricism and faith influence human thought, their incompatibility arises when they attempt to govern the same societal issues. Before we move further along, let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of each. Empiricism drives scientific discovery and progress, ensuring adaptability through self-correction. At its fundamental level, empiricism doesn't attempt to prove anything. It merely collects information and, based on that information, continues to accept or deny previously accepted fact. At one time, it was assumed that the stars, planets, moon, and the sun all revolved around the Earth, and as such, the Earth was considered to be the center of the universe. But the observations of Galileo and Copernicus provided new information that led to our changing the assumption by understanding that the Earth revolves around the sun. But empiricism does have limitations, such as how it struggles to address existential meaning and subjective human experiences. We find strength in faith as it fosters resilience, builds communities, and provides deep moral grounding, But faith, too, has limitations, such as when assumptions are rigidly held onto and, as such, resist new knowledge. And that can lead to dogmatic thinking and unwavering adherence to beliefs regardless of contradictory evidence or alternative perspectives. Dogmatism often dismisses empirical findings outright, favoring established doctrines over rational inquiry. And now we get to how faith and empiricism actively influence laws, ethics, moral grounding, and public policy. Their tension is particularly visible in societal debates where faith-based convictions often clash with empirical reasoning. Take abortion, for example. Faith-based opposition exists when religious traditions argue against abortion based on the sanctity of life, while empirical supports argue that studies in reproductive health demonstrate that legal abortion access improves maternal well-being. In same-sex marriage, faith-based opposition exists as many religious doctrines uphold traditional marriage to be between one female and one male based on physical attributes at birth, while empirical research consistently shows that same-sex marriages positively contribute to the mental and societal well-being of all. In climate change, empirical perspectives show scientific data confirming human-caused global warming, while faith-based skepticism comes to be as some religious perspectives reject climate science, citing divine governance. In evolution and creationism, from the empirical perspective, evolutionary biology is supported by fossil records and genetic evidence, while faith-based opposition shows that many religious traditions advocate for creationism or intelligent design, relying on scripture rather than scientific models. In medical ethics such as stem cell research or vaccinations, empirical perspectives show that stem cell research offers medical advancement and vaccines prevent disease, while faith-based concerns show that some oppose stem cell research and vaccination due to sanctity of life doctrines or divine protection. We could go on with additional examples, but I think you see the point being made. So now we move on to why faith and empiricism cannot be reconciled in a single argument. The issues we just presented illustrate a central issue. Faith and empiricism operate in fundamentally different ways. Empiricism depends on testable, repeatable evidence, while faith relies on conviction and moral intuition. Attempts to merge both of them into a single argument diminishes clarity. Empirical claims require validation, while faith-based claims exist wholly outside that framework. If a debate employs both empiricism and faith, the argument itself loses coherence. Empirical findings can't be refuted by spiritual conviction, nor can faith be expected to conform to scientific inquiry. Instead, faith and empiricism must be kept distinct, acknowledging their parallel but separate roles in shaping human understanding. Rather than forcing a synthesis that diminishes the integrity of both ways of knowing, a more productive approach is to recognize their coexistence while maintaining necessary boundaries for clear argumentation. While both faith and empiricism serve as valid ways of knowing, they operate under fundamentally different rules. Attempting to merge them into a single argument undermines logical coherence and prevents any meaningful resolution. Again, empiricism relies on evidence, falsifiability, and repeatability. It demands that claims be tested, observed, and refined based on new data. Faith, on the other hand, relies on conviction, moral intuition, and trust in the unseen. It doesn't require empirical validation and often resists modification based on external evidence. When both are used simultaneously in debate, the discussion becomes inherently flawed. Again, empirical claims demand proof, while faith-based claims don't. This creates an uneven playing field where one side must provide evidence while the other relies on belief alone. Faith-based arguments can't be disproven empirically. If a claim is rooted in faith, no amount of scientific evidence can refute it, making empirical counter-arguments ineffective. And empirical reasoning can't validate faith. Science cannot prove or disprove spiritual conviction, making attempts to reconcile them futile. Debates lose clarity when both frameworks are mixed. A logical conclusion requires consistency in epistemology, either empirical or faith-based, but not both. So, if a discussion aims to reach logical conclusion, participants must choose one framework, either faith or empiricism, and remain within its boundaries. Mixing them dilutes the argument, leading to circular reasoning, frustration, and an inability to resolve key issues. Again, this narrative doesn't argue for the superiority of either faith or empiricism. Instead, it highlights that for any debate to be productive, one must commit to a single epistemological framework. Attempting to merge faith and empiricism can only lead to confusion, miscommunication, and intellectual deadlock. So, the next time you find yourself uncomfortable, defensive, angry, filled with unease when talking with another person, especially in matters of social importance, quickly examine the approach both you and the other person is using. And more often than not, you'll no doubt find that your conversation is mixing empiricism and faith. And at that moment of discovery, you can rebound by either insisting that the conversation remain true to one or the other, or to politely retreat from the conversation, as you'll understand the folly at play by continuing it.